Let's go to the Middle East now, where Israel's cabinet has approved a ceasefire deal with Hamas for the release of hostages being held in Gaza in exchange for Palestinians in Israeli prisons. Now, under the deal, Hamas is to free 50 of the 240 hostages it's holding over a 4-day period. Joining me now for the latest, the Australian's foreign editor, Greg Sheridan. Greg, take us through this plan and what it means for the wider conflict, because it's, from what I understand, a 4-day ceasefire, so effectively a pause, or is it likely to morph into something else and it's a cessation of the war completely?
Peter, it's great to be with you. Look, this is a dangerous moment for Israel. I think they had to agree to something like this because the sense of solidarity in Israel with the innocent hostages is overwhelming. But these hostage deals actually have been very bad for Israel in the past. You know, they released 1,000 Palestinian prisoners in order to retrieve Corporal Gilad Shalit in 2011. Among them were 280 people on life sentences for murdering Israeli civilians. And among them are the leaders of Hamas today who masterminded the October 7 atrocities. Now, there's going to be a 4-day pause in the fighting, and Hamas will release 12 or 13 prisoners every day. At this stage, only women and children. Israel is determined that for the moment it won't be releasing any Palestinian with blood on their hands directly, but will be releasing female prisoners. Israel has said, though, that it will extend the pause in fighting for a day every time Hamas releases another 10 prisoners. Now, Hamas has been severely degraded and hurt by this military campaign Israel is running, and it has an incentive to string this out for as long as possible. And I think it could well release 10 prisoners a day for some time. It also got Israel to agree to have no drone surveillance over Gaza while this pause in fighting is on. And that is ostensibly is so the Hamas terrorists can go and round up the hostages who may be being held by Palestinian and Islamic Jihad or by public-spirited Gazan citizens who just went over the border to rape and murder and torture and pillage and kidnap when Hamas was doing that on October 7. So this is a very fraught business. If the ceasefire continues, Israel will then come under enormous pressure not to resume its campaign, but 250,000 Israelis are temporarily displaced from their own homes. Israel really has to eliminate Hamas leadership in Gaza if it's to return to any semblance of normal life. So this is a very dangerous and fraught moment.
Greg, what do you make of the announcement late this afternoon from Penny Wong confirming that 860 visas have been approved for Palestinians with connections to Australia between the period of October 7 to November 20? I note a recent study published by the Arab World for Research and Development, and this is last week, that shows that 75% of Arab Palestinians support the Hamas terror attacks on the 7th of October. How confident can we be that we're not importing Hamas terror into this country?
Well, this is a very difficult question, Peter, and I think this government is becoming incredibly ragged in foreign affairs and national security generally, and I've up till now been prepared to give them the benefit of the doubt. But how extensive and reliable are security checks undertaken by Australian authorities in Gaza? Of course, every human being would have compassion for innocent civilians who have suffered in Gaza, and the moral responsibility for their suffering rests entirely with the Hamas terrorist group. And instead of calling on Israel to exercise restraint, the Albanese government might have been calling on Hamas to surrender itself to the International Court of Justice to face war crimes trials for their atrocities on October 7, and to release the hostages, which would make a cessation of fighting much more likely. If these are innocent civilians, it's good that we give them shelter. On the other hand, what recent weeks have revealed is that there is a really terrible tradition of Arab anti-Semitism alive and well, which is mixing in with all the other anti-Semitism, which is resurgent all over the world. And it's not only that the vast majority of Palestinians support the Hamas atrocities. These were really unspeakable atrocities on October 7. But there is a tremendous tradition of anti-Semitism and hatred of Jews throughout the education system in the territories. And then Penny Wong says, oh, but don't worry, we granted 1,700 visas to Israelis, as though somehow or other, you know, that shows a balance. I mean, this
that cancels
awful
it out.
moral equivalence that this government goes in for all the time now. I think this is becoming a very shabby government in these matters, and I'm no longer willing to give them the benefit of the doubt or to accept anything on trust. Having said all that, any Palestinian who comes in under these visas has absolutely a welcome from Australia. I mean, if they're here and they're obeying the law and all the rest of it, God bless them, and we wish them deliverance from this terrible conflict, which has been brought about by Hamas.
Which, of course, they voted for many years ago. Greg Sheridan, thank you. I might also mention too, Home Affairs, that department that's under siege, that'll make the assessments of these people coming to Australia. That's led by Claire O'Neill and Andrew Giles, those two ministers I've spent the top of the show talking about. Well, they still do not have a permanent secretary in charge. Michael Pizzullo, that report will come out, we're told, imminently about whether or not he keeps his job.